from his studios in New York, it's time for Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Here's your host, Dan Tortora.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt inside of the Charney's Menswear and Tuxedo Studios. You're also watching on Facebook Live, facebook.com/live-now-DT. So whether you're watching or listening live everywhere in central and upstate New York, up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and outside of the country, thank you to everyone that we have here with us this morning and every morning, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. With that being said, we are at that point in today's first hour of the show where Bob Casullo is joining us. Bob Casullo, the former assistant coach for Syracuse football, as well as he has worked professionally and collegiately with the wonderful world of sports, and especially with football, the work that he has done, the coaches that he has been connected to, and just the overall history that he has had in the sport of football has really brought a lot of fantastic analysis here for us, as well as, the world of sports in general. We've been able to bounce to different topics, and I always appreciate having Bob on the show. So he's down in Florida just like Papa Joe is, so it's nice to have this first hour where we feel a little bit of that warmth from Papa Joe and Bob Casullo, as up here in central New York it is snowing. Down in Florida, it's going to hit the 60s and the 70s today. So, Bob, how are we doing this morning in sunny Florida?
Doing great. Really, the wind's blowing pretty hard. It's a little cooler, but it's great golf weather. So that's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon.
So, for you, Bob, I mean, you've been down there for a bit. You've had some time to relax and take it all in. What are your favorite pieces of retirement? What are your favorite things that you get to do in retirement?
Nothing.
I knew you were going to say that.
My wife says to me, she goes, "So what are you going to do today?" I said, "Nothing." She said, "Well, I thought you did that yesterday." I said, "Yeah, but I didn't finish."
Nice. I love
that. Should give you an idea. We play golf.
Yeah.
We we go to breakfast with some guys. We go to lunch with other guys. Then we go to dinner, out to dinner once or twice a week. And tonight I'm going to the Florida Panthers hockey game. They're playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, so that should be a good game. But, you find things to do to keep busy.
For you, Bob, is it tough sometimes to watch the game and be away from the game? Do you have those moments where, you see something, or, maybe somebody's running something and they didn't run it right, or there's a certain defense that you feel like doesn't really work anymore? Do you ever get that itch or that feeling when you're watching something that you want to get back out there and that they need to do it a little bit better? Do you ever have that itch?
Absolutely. Let me tell you something. I lock myself in on Saturdays and Sundays and watch college and pro football, and some of the things I see are absolutely just mind-boggling, and there's little wonder as to why a team is a good team and why teams are bad teams. You watch these, and I mean, it's sad. It really is. It's sad, and the game is, it's a copycat game, unfortunately, and it tells me that people you don't have the wherewithal to be unique, and it's just it's sad. It really is. It's hard to watch because of I don't want to say the stupidity, because that's the ugliness, I guess, is the way to put it. There's people going for it on 4th and 1 when they should be punting. People punting when they should be going on it at 4th and 1. Offsides penalties when it's 3rd and 2. There's just so many things. Lack of adjustments. My whole thought process is the second half. Watch the second half, and then you know who the good teams are being coached correctly. Because the second half is where games are won and games are lost. So, it's very frustrating to me to watch it.
And like you said, frustrating for you to see it the second half where games are won and lost. Copycat. I want to go to the copycat side of things. There's a defense that had worked in the past and had worked for, I believe, John Gruden, the Tampa 2. We see that here now, and we see it with, Syracuse had tried to run it and whatnot. Do you think there's a successful way in today's football to run the Tampa 2, or is it just a defense that doesn't work? Because it really had a positive stigma, then it got a negative stigma. You're a guy who's studied the X's and O's of it all. What does a Tampa 2 defense do in today's football world?
It's worthless. It's worthless. Let me tell you, when Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl running the Tampa 2 defense, they had seven all-pro defensive players. And when the Miami Hurricanes won the national championship with Dennis Erickson, they won it running a Tampa 2 defense then. It wasn't called Tampa 2, but that's what it was with Ray Lewis as the middle linebacker. They won the national championship. They had, I think, 5 first or second team defensive All-American players. So it's the personnel. In today's game, I don't see the Tampa. First of all, you got to have a front four that's going to pressure the quarterback every single play. When the Tampa Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, 3 of their front 4 went to the were voted into the Pro Bowl that year. So you don't have to blitz. In today's game, especially in college, there's very few teams that can pressure you with a front 4. The only one that I really saw this year do it won the national championship, LSU. If you don't have that front 4, then you got to blitz.
Yeah.
You got to blitz. When I worked with Scott Schaefer at the end of my career, his blitz packages were phenomenal because, and his philosophy was, we're going to get you or you're going to get us. Hopefully we get you more times than they get us. If you sit in a Tampa 2 defense and you got just guys, just players, and I don't care what the school is, it can be Syracuse, it can be Pittsburgh, India, I don't care who it is. If you got just guys playing defense and you're sitting in a Tampa 2, you're done. You got no chance. None. And, I think it's run its course unless you have the talent. That's just my personal opinion.
That coming here from Bob Casullo this morning, former Syracuse assistant coach and a former coach inside of the ranks of the NFL as well as college football in general. For that, and like you said with the Tampa 2, it just doesn't work unless you have the personnel up front to see what Syracuse went through recently here. They just fired their defensive coordinator midseason, Brian Ward. He was giving up 38.58 points per game his first season at Syracuse, 32.12 in his second season, gave up 54 points a game over a 3-game span, gave up over 70 points to a Pittsburgh team a few years back. How do you assess that situation? And with a Dino Babers offense that's about speed and running a lot of plays and just, getting out there and just rapidly firing, that puts your defense on the field for more time, more often than not. What do you think about the current situation in Syracuse? They're trying to shift their defense, but, a team that was giving up 30 to 40 points a game and relying on outscoring you and just being faster than you. How have you kind of watched and maybe what's your analysis of that style and the fact that obviously the defense was a Tampa 2 and it was a read and react defense and it was relying on the offense scoring 40 points a game?
Well, it goes back to what I said, and, I don't want to get involved with coaches firing other coaches or coaches getting fired. I've done that route, and it's not a very nice place to be.
Right.
But I would say this. I don't really know Coach Babers. He seems like a real good man. He seems like a very gifted offensive coach. I got to believe that he made very strong suggestions to the then defensive coordinator. Look, you got to fix this. You got to make adjustments. You got to do it. You got to find out what we need to do to not give up 30-plus points a game because we're not always going to score 35, And I don't know. I can't speak for you. You'd have to talk to him. But my guess is that he wasn't satisfied with going from 35 to 31 points per game. That's just my guess. But you have got to get in there. If I'm at Syracuse now, knowing that they can score points, hopefully they get back to that scoring points mode. And then you get a defense that can disrupt and stop the opponent, they're going to be okay. They really are. Look, Syracuse there's 131 Division I football teams. I'll give you 10 teams that are constantly better than everybody else. That means there's 121 teams in Division I college football that are going to go, okay? They're going to go 6-6, okay? Yeah. They're going to go 8-4, or they're going to go 4-8. And what's the difference between 4-8 and 8-4? It's probably penalties. It's probably lack of a kicking game. It's probably not being able to stop your opponents. It's probably not being able to score. It's got to be one or two of those things. Now, you look at Syracuse from what I see, and we don't get them that much down here, but when I get a chance, I watch them. I think their offense is capable of scoring points. They shore up that offensive line, and they're going to be much, much better. Their special teams are doing fine. Their problem is what you just said. They don't get off the field. They don't stop their opponents enough. So if he can plug that leak and fix that, they were 10-3 2 years ago. I think this year they were 5-7. They start getting to that 8-4 consistent mode, then you got yourself a good football program. And I think he's, again, I don't know him. I don't know what's going on, but I think he realizes, look, I fix this, we're going to be okay. That's just my opinion.
Speaking here this morning with Bob Casullo, former Syracuse assistant coach, and also in the world of the NFL and around the college football world with everything that Bob has done over his time. And Bob, I got to ask you as a coach, what was your most frustrating penalty? They talk about self-inflicted wounds are the worst ones. As a coach, what was the one penalty that just irks you more than anything else when your team committed it?
Well, when I worked for the Seattle Seahawks, Mike Holmgren said one thing to me. He said, there's one fireable offense for the special teams coach. And I said, what's that? And he said, 12 men on the field.
Yeah.
He said, I can't tolerate that. He said, I pay you good money. He said, you got to be able to count to 11. I can't tell you, Dan, I can't tell you how many times in college football and the NFL, teams are caught with 12 men on the field.
Yeah.
Okay. I also, if you add 10 men on the field, that doubles the lack of whatever, and I find myself watching these games over the weekend counting players. It's an old habit, But I think the two most disastrous penalties are too many men on the field, okay, or jumping off sides, or false start, offensive false start, or defensive jump off sides when it's less than 5 yards for first down. To me, those are the two most, god-awful penalties you can have.
Yeah, and obviously, and frustrating, like you said, self-inflicted wounds, especially when you're trying to count how many players are going out on the field and that type of mistake. When you're watching the game, what are you most closely paying attention to? Now that you're not on the sidelines, you're retired, and you're still taking these games in. What are, besides counting how many men are out there, like you said that you still tend to do, what are you looking for the most when you're watching a football game?
One thing I look for the most is adjustments as the game progresses, both offensively and defensively. It's the old saying. If you continue to do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you always got. And a guy smarter than all of us once said, if you can do, what is stupidity is doing the same things and expecting different results. And so to me, when I watch these games, I want to see what the offense is doing to adjust if the defense is holding them. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. If you saw the first half Kansas City Chiefs, you'd say they got no chance. You saw the second half Kansas City Chiefs, My God, what did they do?
Yeah.
Their adjustments were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal between the first half and the second half. To me, that's what and it's the same thing when you watch like the New England Patriots. Defensively, people may move the ball on them a little bit in the first half. People may score a little bit on them in the first half. And then all of a sudden in the second half, New England scores 2 touchdowns, kicks a field goal, and wins the game by 17 points. Defense pitches a shutout. It's adjustments. That's what I look for. To me, that's what coaching is all about. You got to adjust, okay, and you got to advance. That's what you got to do. And I don't. Too many teams, they go out there and they do the same thing over and over again, and it's just like, oh my God! Throughout the course of a game, you got to adjust, and you have to run the ball. I go back and you have to stop the run. The game's not that hard to figure out. It's just hard to execute.
That coming here this morning from Bob Casullo, and I love that statement. The game's not that hard to figure out. It's just hard to execute. And with that being said, in your opinion, Bob, who are, if you had to pick 5 of the NFL's coaches, who are the 5 best coaches, in your opinion, currently right now in making adjustments and being able to, I know you kind of mentioned one right now when you're talking about Andy Reid in Kansas City, but who are the best coaches currently in their ability to make adjustments and look like a different team in the second part of a game if they're down and they've made mistakes to come out of that locker room and change it up? Who are the 5 best coaches at doing that?
Well, Bill Belichick, by far and away, is number 1. Andy Reid is number 2, okay? Sean Payton in New Orleans has become a much better coach since he's become more vocal on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's what's made his team better. Okay, those 3. I got to throw in Tom Coughlin. Even though he's not coaching anymore, Tom Coughlin, to me, was right up there with Bill Belichick for making adjustments as the game is progressing. You know what I mean? Bill Cowher was one of those guys, too. As the game progressed, they made adjustments. Other than that, right now, it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot because what happens is, Dan, when you watch the NFL, some teams are very, very good on offense because of their head coach, and other teams are very, very good on defense because of their head coach. But until Bill Belichick became a complete head coach, when he gave up the defensive play calling and became the head coach of the New England Patriots, I don't think they've lost. You know what I'm saying? They were good to begin with. Now they're untouchable. I think Andy Reid, what he did was he got rid of his defensive coordinator, Bob Sutton, who I worked with, who's a wonderful guy, and he brought in Steve Spagnuolo, who I know also. He made that change, and they won it all. You have to be able to adjust. You have to be able to make these moves as difficult as it. And I think another guy that does a great job is John Harbaugh with the Baltimore Ravens. He does a great job also. And I used to coach against him when he was a special teams coach. And let me tell you something, you had your hands full because he always had something up his sleeve in the fourth quarter that was different than what he was doing the previous 3 quarters. And that's how he coaches his football team. So I would say those guys, and I may be forgetting someone, but I don't think so. I think those are pretty much the guys that get it done.
That coming here this morning from Bob Casullo, former Syracuse football assistant coach, as well as a former assistant throughout the world of college football as well as the NFL. Bob, to take a look at the XFL's game, they've come into existence, the second iteration of the XFL, and it's obviously headed up by Vince McMahon as well as Andrew Luck's father, which is kind of an interesting piece and kind of cool to all this. But we look at where things are at for the XFL right now. Bunch of different rules. The rules on special teams are different. You have to be set together until that player receives the ball. Then you can move. There's no more extra points. There are, you can go for it from the 2 and get 1. You can go for it from the 5-yard line and get 2 points, or you can go from the 10-yard line and get 3 points. So at any given time, you could get 9 points on a scoring drive is the highest you can go. So we've seen some of those changes. There's a shorter play clock and obviously a shorter halftime. They're trying to speed up the game a bit, and they went to college rules when it comes to catching the ball. What do you like or dislike about the rules that are different between the XFL and the NFL?
Well, I like the 1 foot in rule. I like that because, to me, 1 foot in, you're in play. You don't need the second foot. The NFL's never going to change that. But you asked me which rules I like. That one I like. Anything that involves tinkering with the special teams, I don't like. I think what they're trying to do is they don't want to take special teams out of the game, but they want to modify it to satisfy, injuries and all that other whatever people are throwing in. But I don't necessarily agree with it. That kickoff stuff is basically a punt return, is what it is. If you watch it, what are they, 10 yards apart, 5 yards apart? It's basically a punt return. When the guy catches the ball, then everybody releases, and it's one-on-one blocking. I don't know. I think the XFL is a fun league. I think it serves a purpose. It's satisfying fans' fix for football. I don't think it has anything to do with getting players elevated to the NFL. I would say there may be a handful of players that's going to afford an opportunity to, but you play a 10-game XFL schedule, then think you're going to go to a preseason camp in the NFL, and if you make the team, then you got to play 18 games with preseason. It ain't happening. Nobody's body can do that. So take the thought process that it's a farm team league. That is not the purpose. I think it's a fun league. I think it's a great opportunity for guys to play, to keep themselves playing the game they love. And the rules are funky, but you know what? If that's what they want to do, then let them do it. I think with Vince McMahon's money, and if they got quality coaches now, I'll tell you this, they got some darn good football coaches, not only as head coaches, but as position coaches. That league is loaded with ex-NFL and Division I college coaches that know what the hell they're doing. So the quality of the game each week is going to get better and better and better. And if they can ever come back for a second and third year, I think that this thing's got a chance to survive.
When you watch it, Bob, what do you think of the talent that we're seeing? You talk about the coaches, and I agree with you. There's some names there, not just head coaches, but overall that, people can get excited about and have fun with. I'm excited for the fact that when I came in and started covering the American Athletic Conference, Houston had June Jones. And so to see June Jones back, a name like that really sticks out to me and gets me excited about it. And when you hear the Stoops family is involved and whatnot. So for you, though, to look at the player side of things, what can you say, we're a few weeks into the XFL, the quality of the player that's out there, what are you seeing from that aspect of it? And is there a lot of, are there a lot of talented players, or do you think that, maybe the well's a little bit drier and some teams got a bunch of them and some other teams don't have enough?
Well, I think, that's one of the issues. There's one team in particular, maybe a second one, that you can see are definitely outclassed talent-wise. And I don't know how they distributed the talent, but Tampa Bay and Seattle are struggling as far as talent goes. I think the overall talent level of the league is I don't think, look at it this way. The best team to win the XFL this year was to play the worst team from last year's NFL, okay?
Yeah.
I don't think they could win. I think they could compete, definitely could compete, but I don't think they could win. I just think it's an opportunity for 8 times 50 for 400 or 500 football players to continue their careers, maybe get a chance at the big dance, but if not, play a good quality level of football, okay? Get a decent paycheck and enjoy yourself. And I really think that's what it's all about. And, hopefully as they keep progressing week to week, the performances keep the execution, the players, the strategies keep improving, and you're going to have a pretty decent product by the end of the season.
Some people talk about being footballed out, and obviously we're stepping into March Madness. Do you think that does anything to, the XFL? Is there that? Do you think there's a real notion of being too much football because fans seem to clamor for it? They seem to desire it. We're seeing, fans show up in the 30,000s, the 20,000s. We're seeing the 2 million and the 3 million viewers on television. So it doesn't look to be that way. But, what's your overall sense of when the season is and the fact that it's going to carry us all the way throughout March Madness? And when March Madness ends at the beginning of April, we'll still have 3 more weeks of the XFL before all's said and done this year on April 26th. So what do you think about the scheduling of it all and what they're up against?
Well, there is no good time of the year. It can't be a summer league because they still have that notion that there's some players that are going to get picked up by NFL teams. So if you overlap with the NFL preseason, you can take that out of the equation, okay? I think if they're looking for expansion, which I think they are, if they're looking for expansion, you got to start in February. You're treading on thin ice in New York City and in Philadelphia. You're probably not going to get it done in Pittsburgh. You're probably not going to get it done you could in Detroit and Minnesota if they're allowed to play indoors.
Yeah.
But if you don't have indoor New England is out. There's nobody there. So you're geographically, if you're going to expand, you're talking about expanding into southern, southwestern, western areas, and so it's going to be basically dividing the country in half horizontally rather than vertically. And does the Northeast people like it? You know what I mean? But it's difficult to have a team in Philadelphia playing on February 28th. You don't know what the hell. Like, they're getting blasted today up the coast. So if you had a game this weekend, you'd be in trouble, But I think there's all kinds of good things that can happen, and it all depends upon how much money Vince McMahon is willing to lose, because I don't think he's ever going to make money. But, if he ever breaks even, you're going to have a hell of a product.
That coming here from Bob Casullo this morning. Bob, really quick before I let you go here, just a few other points. One of them being St. Louis. They lost the Rams just a few seasons ago. I was down in the city shortly after that happened, actually for the NCAA tournament for March Madness. And when I went down there, it was just this very kind of eerie, strange feeling. There was still a bunch of banners up. It still said home of the Rams, and yet the Rams were gone and they were on a plane to Los Angeles. What do you think about, not only St. Louis, but other cities that lost NFL franchises, like in Oakland now, potentially getting an XFL franchise, because it seems like the city of St. Louis has really taken to this team because they now have another chance of having professional football again.
Well, I think to hit two of the cities that, if you remember the old XFL or whatever it was called, the Oakland, what were they, the Destroyers or something? The Oakland, they were something, and I know a guy that coached for them, and they had 30,000 people to a game.
Yeah.
They were very well received. So you've already mentioned two, Oakland and St. Louis, that would be pretty darn good in getting an XFL expansion team. San Antonio might be one, because they have that indoor beautiful stadium, So you can expand. What are they now, 8 teams?
Yeah, they have 8.
I think you could very easily get to 12 without any problem at all. Get to 12 teams, maybe throw one in New Orleans. How about Memphis, Tennessee, or something like that? Charlotte? You could get to 12 teams very easily.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that there are some of these cities like the Orlandos too that tried in the AAF and tried to have an opportunity there. Orlando seems to be a hotbed to try anything and get it off the ground. So I mean, if we just did that, like you said, go from 8 to 12. If we went to Memphis, Orlando, Oakland, and we pick one other place. I know you had mentioned. I know some people had brought up San Antonio, but there is a viable one in Alabama. They're looking at Alabama right now. So if you have a team in Alabama, you got a team in Memphis, Tennessee, you got in Orlando, and you got in Oakland. Now you've already expanded it. You've kept it in good areas as far as weather-wise go, and you can move it forward. But it seems like there's a lot of viable places that can almost immediately make a decision on this.
Absolutely. And again, when they get through this first season and they evaluate where they are and where they want to be, and because let me tell you something, there's enough players out there. It's just a matter of getting them together, and what they have to do is make the old Pete Rozelle philosophy of the NFL, make everybody equal. If you make everybody equal, then it becomes fun because everybody's got a chance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that down the road, it really does have a chance. Now you go from the week after the Super Bowl, let's say you go February 15th, you go to May 1st. That's perfect. You can't ask for anything better than that,
Yeah.
And I think you'd have something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the XFL is definitely rules-wise onto something, talent-wise, gives people an opportunity and helps more players to have jobs outside of this, more coaches to have jobs, and then obviously people forget about this, but the groundskeepers and the stadiums and the cities to continue to bring money in and all the local businesses in the area, the restaurants, the hotels. It helps everybody if this thing works. I do want to get to Mr. Rocco Casullo, and was over at St. Thomas Aquinas for a while, and has now decided to take on a new coaching opportunity in Cypress Bay. What are your thoughts? What's your take? I mean, this just came out recently here that we got this notice here on February 22nd. So what's going through your mind?
Well, obviously, my wife and I are very proud.
Yeah.
He took 3 years away from it. He had some personal issues.
Also get home.
And he was really waiting for the right opportunity. He had offers in the last 3 years, but he really wanted to sit back. He's taking care of his kids. He's got himself positioned now, and I give him credit. He was very patient, very patient. This is the largest high school in Broward County. It was coached by a great guy who retired several years ago, Mark Wandola. Great guy, won state championships. It's an 8A high school, 4,500 students. They're 10-10 the last 2 years, and for this school, that's not good enough. So they went out and they worked with Rock, and it was a month-long process, and they finally got it done. And me, my wife, we couldn't be happier. I think it's a great opportunity. He's in the process now. He's already started working, teaching. He's already started putting together a staff because they got spring football starting May 1st, and they're going to hit the ground running. And, I expect not only me, but the school expects good things. And I'm a proud father, but I'm also a prejudiced father. They hired the right guy, I'll tell you that.
And for you, Bob, to see your son be a part of this, I mean, this world, you've lived in this world and been around this world for such a long time that, what was your take way back when your son decided, this is what I want to do too, Dad. I want to live in this world. I want to be in this. I want to pave my own way. I want to, show what I can be as a coach. What does that do for you?
Let me say this to you. I'm sure you're aware of my son Jamie up there. Casullo is the assistant football coach for West Genesee, for Coach Joe out there. And Jamie was the head coach at West Hill High School after he worked 5 years as the running back coach at Albany State University. So I got two sons that I never forced to get into this profession, but it's very obvious that they were paying attention as I was going through the ranks. And again, I'm a proud father and I'm a prejudiced father, and both Jamie and Rocco do a phenomenal job. I mean, West Tennessee has been doing very well competitively the last 2 or 3 years, and they're going to do well this year. And of course, now Rocco's got this job, and I'm very, even though I never pushed them into this profession,
yeah,
I'm proud as hell that they're in it. And I also am aware, like I said, they were obviously paying attention. They were. I'm sure they were calling plays in their heads. They were calling defenses in their heads. And although they very rarely, if ever said, "Dan, what happened?" or "Why'd you do this?" or "Why didn't you do that?" they very rarely said that. I can now tell that in their minds they were forming their own programs, their own philosophies, and their own thought processes. And Jamie at West Jenny and Rocco now at Cypress Bay, those schools got two good football coaches. And that's, like I said, I'm speaking as a proud dad, and I'm prejudiced, but I can recognize coaching. I can tell you that.
And for you, I mean, do you sense that they have their own style? They've paved their own way. Do you get a sense for that?
Oh, yeah, because I'll tell you, Dan, every once in a while, I'll say, we always talk, obviously, both of us, both kids and me, and every once in a while they say, "Dad, you can't do that now." I said, "Oh, okay." And they go, and I go, "Okay, it worked for the Oakland Raiders, but apparently we can't do that now,
Yeah.
And then, the way you discipline kids and the way you handle kids and parents, it's a whole new ball game. And both my sons tell me, "Dad, you couldn't do it today. You definitely could not coach these situations today." I'm old-fashioned, you know what I mean, Dan? And you have to adjust to the times, and they both are very, very player-friendly. They do a great job with the parents. They do a great job with their administrators. They do a great job with their coaches and their coworkers. And a gruff old man like me probably wouldn't happen, So, but they're very good. They're very good at what they do.
Coming here from Bob Casullo this morning. Bob, we were going to get into some March Madness, but we got time for that, and we will definitely get into that because I'll have you back on the show soon. I don't know a better way to conclude than to give a shout-out to both of your sons and the work that they're doing in the state of Florida and the state of New York. So I'm happy for you to be a proud dad and your wife to be a proud mom, and I look forward to the opportunity very, very soon here to have you back on the show. But as always, Bob, thank you for your time and for being so candid and open and honest with everything that you have that you throw onto the show. And it really does mean a lot, and it goes a long way. So I appreciate you. I have a lot of respect for you, so thank you for that.
Thanks, Dan. I always enjoy listening and being on.
All right, I'll talk with you soon.
Okay, buddy.
All right, take care.